Alright, today we're going to be working on the multi-step separation lab. This one is very short, shouldn't take long. Basically, we're going to be using these three ingredients to create a mixture, and then we're going to go through multiple steps to separate these ingredients back out. So, our substances are gravel, salt, sand, and iron filings, or iron. Alright, so this one, if you can see, this one's just like some small bits of metallic iron. Alright, so our four ingredients for our substance are going to be gravel, salt, sand, and iron shavings, or iron filings, or you can just write iron. Now, of these four ingredients, which of these is soluble? Which one will dissolve in water? I hope you said the salt. Salt dissolves in water. Rocks do not dissolve in water. They're not soluble. Metal, the iron, does not dissolve in water. And sand, think about if you're trying to decide whether sand dissolves in water or not, think about if you're at the beach and you're in the water, what's on the beach and at the bottom of the ocean? Sand, right? Because sand does not dissolve in water, but the salt does, so salt is soluble. And when I combine these four items, will this give me a mixture or a solution? So I'm going to take my iron, I'm going to add it to the gravel. I'll take my sand, add it to the gravel and iron, and I'll take my salt, add it to the sand, iron, and gravel as well. So we're left with four dry solids. Mix these up. And what do we have? A mixture or a solution? Can we see the ingredients? If we wanted to, could we physically go in and can we separate these ingredients back apart from each other? Answer to both those questions is yes. So we have a mixture, not a solution. Now, if I were to add water to this, think about it. The ingredients here are gravel, sand, iron, and salt. And remember, we already said salt is soluble in water. Salt does dissolve. So if I were to add water to this and stir it around a bit, would I, after adding water and stirring it, would I have a mixture, a solution, or both? Alright, I'm going to, after we do add water to this, I hope you answered that this will not be a mixture or just a solution. It will be both, right? Because the gravel, the sand, and the iron won't dissolve in the water. They'll still be able to be seen, but the salt will be absorbed by the water. The salt will dissolve into the water. So we'd have both. Part of the ingredients are recognized as a mixture, and the salt dissolved in the water would be a solution. So adding water and stirring up, we will have both. Now, the first thing I'm going to do to separate these is I'm going to use a hand strainer. Normally, when we did this before to separate gravel out, we used this hand strainer or this hand screen, but we had already added water to it. So whenever you are just using dry ingredients and using a screen, it's called sifting or using a sift. So since we've already seen this hand strainer or hand screen filter out the rocks, the gravel, in water, today we're going to do it as a sifting filtration method, sifting method. So I'm going to take my mixture here, right, all my stuff. I'm going to pour it in, and you can see right away almost everything fell to the bottom of the cup. I still have some particles that are like the sand and the salt and the iron. So now we sift just by shaking it. All right, and letting all those smaller particles fall through the holes. All the gravel was too large to fall through the tiny holes on the screen. So our gravel has successfully been separated by sifting. All right, next, now we have left, what are our three ingredients we have left? We have sand, salt, and iron. What would be the best method to get the iron filaments or the iron filings out of this mixture? The most successful method would probably be using a magnet. So normally you put the magnet in and swirl it around and it should collect everything up. I just want to show you all something cool. If I put the magnet on the outside of this cup, you can see all of the iron filings being attracted by this magnetic force, and then we can even play around with it a little bit. All right. And if I pull my magnet away from the cup, they all fall back down. Alright, so to get this out, I will put in my magnet and stir it around a little bit. Collected most of my iron here. You can see it all hanging out. So that got a lot of the iron, but it probably didn't get every piece. So let's come back over and stir our magnet around some more. And we still had some left on here. I'm going to pull these off, and then we'll try using the magnet to extract all iron one more time. Make sure we got all the bits out. Alright, I think we are clean of iron. So now, using magnetism, we have successfully separated out all of our iron filings. Now we're left with two ingredients in here. Right? Now we're left with salt and sand. Now, if I wanted to, could I take a big magnifying glass and some tweezers and slowly separate all of these sand particles out away from all of the sand and salt particles, and slowly take tweezers and just slowly move them into two separate piles? Theoretically, yes, I could, but that would take forever. So there's an easier way we can do this. We can add water to this mixture to create a sand and saltwater solution, and then we can separate the sand out using a filter, and then we can, all we'll have left is the salt and water. So I'm going to add some water here. Now, will the salt dissolve if I just let it sit? Yeah, the salt would eventually dissolve, but there are some ways that I can make the salt dissolve faster. Can you think of any of the three ways that we've learned can make salt dissolve faster? Well, first, I could crush the salt up into smaller particles if I'd done that beforehand. What else could I do? I could heat this water up to make the salt dissolve faster, or I could stir to make the salt dissolve faster by agitating the molecules in here. So we'll give it a minute. I'm going to stir this. I'm going to keep stirring while I explain this next part. So what I have here is just a paper filter that I just rubber banded it. This is just like the paper filters we used before, the coffee filters. I just put a rubber band around the filter to hold it to the cup so that I didn't accidentally spill the solution or accidentally dump the filter and everything down into the bottom of the cup. So this is exactly the same filter that y'all have used before. I just put a rubber band on it to make it a little bit easier for me to use. Alright, so I have gotten my solution stirred up, and we will pour it over. And what we're being left with is the water is slowly draining through the paper, and you can see that the sand is not draining through. So the sand is being filtered out while the salt and water are moving through. Do that last bit. And as the last of the water drains through, we can see that the filter has collected all of our sand, but there's no salt up here. The salt has dissolved in the water. So our sand is being collected in the filter, and our water going through, sorry that's upside down, but you can see our water in the bottom is clear. It just has dissolved salt in it. So now for the final question, how can we separate the salt, the dissolved salt in this cup, from the water? All right, so we have one more ingredient we need to separate out. That's the salt that's in the bottom of the cup. Even though we can't see it because it's dissolved, we know it's there. So how can we get the salt and separate from this water? To do that, we would need to do evaporation, right? Place the water somewhere sunny or somewhere hot and give it some time. Eventually, all this water will evaporate out, turn into a gas, and move into the atmosphere. Once the water is evaporated out, we will be left with dry salt in the bottom. All right, so this is one that we completed last week, and I evaporated the water out to leave the salt. I'm not going to make y'all sit through 72 hours of video watching this stuff, watching this water evaporate. So this is what the end product would look. So we got this salt out of salt water by evaporating the water to separate the salt. The water evaporates, goes into the atmosphere, and we're left with a very flaky, crusty salt. All right, and that's it. Use the information in this video to answer these questions. For part 2, you have a word bank here. Feel free to rewind the video or rewatch as many times as you need to. Thank you very much.